Misery. When the picture opens, we see Mr. Paul Sheldon, played by the late great James Caan. Paul is a well-known writer, and he's just finishing up another novel when he decides to take a break and go out for a little drive.
Who got it?
He gets caught in a snowstorm and loses control of his car and goes toppling over the edge. Well, shit! To give you a little backstory on Mr. Sheldon here, he's the author of an extremely popular series of books called the Misery Books. But thing is, he doesn't really want to write misery books anymore and kind of wants to focus on writing other shit and focus on his life with his daughter.
I never meant for it to become my life. If I hadn't gotten rid of it now, I'd have ended up writing it forever.
That was only a flashback though, because we cut back to the flipped car where Paul is coming to, and then we see an unknown person pull him from the car, perform CPR on him, and then carry him out into the storm. Paul then wakes up in a room somewhere, and this is where we meet Annie Wilkes, played by the iconic Kathy Bates. And it seems that she has saved him and has been taking care of him since the wreck.
You've been here 2 days. You're gonna be okay. My name is Annie Wilkes.
Turns out Annie is a nurse, or used to be, so Paul actually lucked the fuck out? So Paul's legs were severely damaged in the wreck. So there's that.
You have a compound fracture of the tibia in both legs, and the fibula in the right leg is fractured too. And as soon as the road's open, I'll take you to a hospital.
Annie seems to be extremely sweet and caring, but Paul here is about to find out just how wrong he really is. Paul's agent is worried as fuck because she hasn't heard a word from him in a while, so she gets a local sheriff to go and check in on him.
He's your client, huh?
Yes, he is.
Everybody sure likes those misery books.
But it seems that Mr. Sheldon is already checked out.
They said he checked out last Tuesday. Isn't that a little strange?
After a close shave, Annie tells Paul that she's his #1 fan.
Well, it wasn't any secret to me you were staying at the Silver Creek, seeing as how I'm your #1 fan and all.
That's a little creepy. She's literally obsessed with his work and asked to read the novel he just finished.
I've read everything of yours, the misery novels. I know them all by heart, all 8 of them. I love them so.
He's basically flattered by her fandom and lets her read it.
The world's greatest writer.
Say the last part again, I didn't hear you.
Later on, after reading his book, I guess you can say she didn't care for it very much.
The swearing, Paul. There, I said it.
The profanity bothers you.
And this is where Paul gets sort of a taste of just how crazy Miss Annie Wilkes here can be.
What do you think I say when I go to the feed store in town? Oh, now, Wally, give me a bag of that effing pig feed and 10 pounds that bitchly cow corn.
Whoa. Then she hits him with some real psycho-ass shit.
I love you, Paul.
The fuck you getting yourself into, Paul? Later on, after a trip into town, Annie comes back home and is clutching Misery's child, Paul's last and final entry in the Misery series.
As soon as I saw it, I slammed my money down. I got the first copy.
She's extremely fucking thrilled to see how the story ends. Apparently, when she went into town, she called and spoke to the doctor, and ironically, her home phone is still out.
The phone's working.
Well, mine's still out, but the ones in town were working just fine. I called that agent of yours.
She promises Paul that as soon as the road to the hospital opens up, help will be on the way.
What a poet you are.
Okay, something is not right about this fucking woman. A couple days pass and Paul is still just laying there. I mean, what other choice does he really have, right? when the door cracks open and a random hog just comes tromping in. Turns out this crazy bitch named the pig Misery.
My favorite beast in the whole world. My sow, Misery.
Misery.
Yes, I told you I was your #1 fan.
I don't think the term a screw loose does old Annie here justice. Later on that night, Annie gets finished reading the final Misery chapter, and she didn't care for it very much, to say the least.
How could you? She can't be dead. Misery Chastain cannot be dead.
And then, she fucking really snaps.
I don't want her dead! I want her! You murdered my Misery!
Annie! This is when she tells Paul that no one is coming to save him.
And don't even think about anybody coming for you. Not the doctors, not your agent, not your family. Because I never called them.
In fear for his life, Paul attempts to make his escape, but that doesn't work out too well for him. That brings a whole new meaning to the phrase break a leg. Ouch. This is when he realizes he's fucking trapped here. Later on, she comes into his room with a little barbecue pit and literally makes this man burn his own novel.
Oh my goodness! Goodness gracious! Oh my!
Now that's fucked up. Truly a soul-crushing moment. Paul hears a chopper flying overhead and he thinks that he could be saved. But it just flies right over and keeps on going. Damn, ain't that a bitch? So ever since Paul arrived and has been under Annie's quote-unquote care, she's been giving him some kind of pain meds called Novril.
They're called Novril. They're for your pain.
He was taking them at first because he thought she was genuinely trying to help him, but after she flipped the lunatic switch, he's been stashing those suckers in his mattress. I wouldn't take those fucking pills either. Fuck that shit. And he gets Paul a wheelchair so he can see the other side of the room, basically.
I always wanted to visit the other side of the room.
She also brings him in a typewriter because she basically wants him to rewrite Misery's Child or come up with something better that has an ending where she doesn't die.
You're gonna write a new novel. Your greatest achievement ever. Misery's Return.
Misery's Return?
She leaves for a second when Paul notices a bobby pin on the floor, and now all he has to do is get her psycho ass out of the house.
I can't work on this paper. See, it's grass on it. It smudges.
Upon his request for paper that doesn't smudge, Annie flips the fuck out yet again.
I can't write on this paper, Annie. Well, I'll get your stupid paper, but you just better start showing me a little more appreciation around here, Mr. Man.
Jeez, what a bitch. She then leaves to get the paper, and now Paul's plans can commence. He uses the bobby pin to unlock the door and makes his way out into the living room where he sees a fucking phone. He's saved. He could totally call for some help.
You crazy bitch.
Shit. He then bumps into a table, knocking a little glass figurine off, but he catches it before it smashes onto the floor. In a desperate attempt to escape the hell house with his life, Paul gets out of his wheelchair and makes his way for the back door. But the back door ends up being locked. Of course it is. When he hears a car pulling up in the driveway. Oh shit, Annie's home. In a panic, he crawls back over to his wheelchair and climbs in. And now he's got to get to that fucking room. This is truly an intense and very on the edge of your seat classic scene. He just barely makes it back into the room. That was too close for comfort, Paulie. We then cut to the sheriff flying around in a chopper when he spots Paul's car. So now they finally have a lead.
You don't think he's dead, do you?
Well, he might well be, but not the way they say. You see the dents on the door there. Someone pulled him out.
Cut back to Paul in his bed where we see him pouring some powder from the Novril capsules into a little homemade pouch. I wonder what he's going to do with that. After reading what Paul's written so far for Misery's Return, she obviously approves of.
Oh, Misery's alive! Misery's alive! Oh, it's so romantic!
He asks her to dinner because he's got a motherfucking plan.
Would you have dinner with me tonight to celebrate Misery's return? I couldn't have done it without you.
It's dinner time and Annie gets up to fetch some candles when Paul slips her crazy ass a roofie.
Did you study decorating, or do you just have a flair?
Oh, you! I just picked things up over the years.
But she accidentally clumsily knocks the drink over, completely spilling it everywhere.
Oh! Oh my God, what have I done?
Well, so much for that. One stormy night, Annie comes in to talk about how the rain makes her depressed.
The rain. Sometimes it gives me the blues.
She then shows Paul a gun, basically threatening to shoot him dead if he ever decides to leave. Shit. She drives off into the storm, and this gives Paul a chance to arm himself with a fucking huge-ass butcher knife. Hell yeah. There you go, bruh. He's rolling past one of the rooms where he sees a newspaper article with him on the motherfucking headline. As he flips through the morbid scrapbook, he finds out just how dangerous this woman truly is. And this is definitely not her first motherfucking rodeo. This woman is truly one evil-ass bitch, and she must be fucking stopped. But old Paul is now armed and ready. After being sedated, Paul wakes up to being bound to the bed by ropes and the pretty annoyed Annie Wilkes.
You've been out of your room.
No, I haven't.
Apparently, she noticed the glass penguin figurine just wasn't in its proper place, so that can only mean that Paul has been sneaking out of his room. She also finds the huge knife, and she isn't too pleased with that either, to say the least. So, to make sure he doesn't wander around again, she does this.
God's sake.
It's for the best.
Annie, please!
Almost done. Just one more.
Well, he's definitely not going anywhere now.
God, I love you.
The sheriff is at the local library doing some research when he makes a crucial discovery. He then finds out that Annie has been oddly buying typing paper.
List you call. Paper on.
Newspaper?
No. Typing kind.
Well, that kind. Nothing odd about that.
So he's now sure that she's gotta know something, and is now hot on her trail. Just as the sheriff pulls up to have a word with Annie, she runs into the room and dopes up Paul again. And throws him in the fucking basement. She then tries to throw the sheriff off of her trail with a bit of bullshitting.
I could give you a couple of 100 pages of mine, and you could tell me what you think.
I'm not much of a critic.
You know damn well you didn't write that shit, bitch. Well, doesn't look like there's much to see here, so sheriff decides to head out when he hears a crash coming from the basement. Goes back in to investigate when this happens.
Mr. Sheldon?
You were getting a little too close there, Buster. She then proceeds to tell Paul that they're destined to be together forever, and that she's basically going to kill him and herself as soon as he's finished with his book. Now that is dark. The book is finally complete, and Paul has some writer's notes here for Miss Wilkes.
For all those years, nobody knew who Misery's real father was, or if they'd ever be reunited. It's all right here. Does she finally marry Ian, or will it be Winthorne?
He torches Misery's return, and now it's time to give Annie the Misery finale she's been waiting for a very long time. After a bit of a struggle and a gunshot to his fucking shoulder, Paul gives Annie the ultimate director's cut.
You want it? You want it? Eat it! Eat it with yourself, you sick, twisted fuck!
As Paul goes to crawl away, it wouldn't be a classic horror film without one final scare. Annie comes at him for one last hoorah, but that doesn't go too well for her crazy ass. Ding dong. The witch is fucking dead. It's 18 months later where we see Paul out having lunch with his agent, and they're celebrating his latest book.
How would you feel about a non-fiction book about what went on in that house?
Gee, Marsh, if I'd have known you better, I think you were suggesting I dredge up the worst horror of my life just so we could make a few bucks.
When he sees a familiar face in the crowd.
Even though I know she's dead, I still think about her once in a while.
But it's not her, though. Just another psycho woman that claims to be his #1 fan.
I'm your #1 fan.
That's very sweet of you.
Oh no! And that's the end of the movie. What a truly classic, iconic film. I definitely highly recommend you guys check out this film. The performance by Kathy Bates as Annie Wilkes is like extremely nuts. Like, she plays the role of a fucking psychotic ass, like, murderous bitch so well. And then you got the late great James Caan, iconic actor that will be truly missed. And he's a legend, so legends never die, and he'll always be remembered. It's a thrill ride. The entire film, you're just like really worried about this guy and just hoping for fuck's sake that he makes it out of this shit alive. And, you know, you're like truly scared for him. The way that James Caan like portrayed Paul Sheldon, it's just like he really felt like he was that guy. Really killed the role.
I've been sitting here suffering.
If you're a Stephen King fan, that's definitely a reason to check it out. The score of the movie is written very well. It sets the tone for like the hopelessness of this guy that's being held captive against his will, you know, while his legs are broken. But he rises above all of that shit and he gets the fuck out of there, you know, and he gets away with his life. It's fucking badass. I know this movie isn't really a horror movie per se, but it does have horror movie elements. It's a little bit more of a suspense thriller. And we have to talk about the iconic ankle-breaking scene with the sledgehammer thing. It's one of the most iconic scenes in movie history, you know what I mean? Like, anybody who's anybody knows this fucking scene. What else can I really say, folks? Check it out. It's a real leg-breaking good time. Scott 86, Misery starring Kathy Bates, and the one and only iconic James Caan. I'll see you guys on the next episode of Monster Mash.